Hey everyone, glad you're back with me today. Thanks for tuning in. I've got a fresh tale to unpack for you, so let's jump right into it. My name's Edgar, and if there's one tough lesson life's drilled into me, it's this. You can live in your own house and still have no clue what's going on inside those walls. People always say love depends on trust, that when you find the one, you should hand over your heart without a second thought. But here's the real deal. When you trust someone without question, it's not loyalty, it's just plain naive. I had to figure that out the hard way, believe me. I used to buy into the fairy tale of love, the kind where you're all in, you've got each other's backs, and betrayal doesn't even cross your mind because you're so sure your partner treasures the bond as much as you do. Never in a million years did I picture myself as the guy sitting here, spilling a story about how my wife turned my beliefs about love, commitment, and marriage upside down, but that's where I'm at now. Looking back, it hits me how simple it is to get fooled when you're head over heels. You either miss the warning signs completely, or you spot them but shove them aside because you can't imagine the person you rely on would ever stab you in the back. You figure since you're loyal and fully committed, they've got to be on the same page, except that's not always how it plays out. After all I've been through, I'm starting to think love's just a big con, a shiny word people toss around without really meaning it. Hang with me through this story, and you'll see exactly why I've landed at that conclusion. I first crossed paths with my wife, Katrina, when I was 31 years old. She was 26, brimming with energy and spark. At that point in my life, I was itching to put down roots, start a family, and build something steady and real. The moment I met her, it was like everything fell into place. We'd chat for hours about anything under the sun, and to anyone watching, we probably looked like the textbook perfect pair. We were together for just over a 2 year before I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. Some might argue that wasn't long enough to really know someone, but I was convinced she was my match. Nothing glaring stood out as a warning, no little hints that made me pause and rethink my choice. We liked the same stuff, got along effortlessly, and being with her just felt right, like we were destined to end up together. Once we tied the knot, things were great. We settled into a cozy place my mom owned, got into a comfortable groove, and for a while, I genuinely thought I'd hit the jackpot in life. I was over the moon, truly content. We were practically glued at the hip in those early days, doing almost everything as a team. But now, reflecting on it, I see the harsh truth. The deepest cuts come from the people you trust with everything. Then one day, Katrina mentioned her phone was giving her grief. It'd freeze up, the battery would die in no time, and some apps refused to load. She was pretty annoyed about it, so I told her not to worry. I'd handle it for her. Wanting to help out, I took her phone to a repair shop, thinking it'd be an easy fix and she'd be back to normal in no time. The tech guy took a look and broke the news. Fixing it would run me almost half the cost of a brand new phone, which didn't add up in my head. I reasoned that if I was already shelling out that kind of cash, I might as well upgrade her to something shiny and new. I figured she'd love the surprise, and honestly, I liked the idea of making her smile with it. So, I skipped the repair and splurged on a new phone instead, not realizing that one little choice was about to flip my whole world upside down. Before moving her stuff over from the old phone to the new one, I decided to give it a final once-over, just to double-check that all her important things, photos, contacts, messages, the usual, were safely backed up. As I poked around the menus, though, something odd caught my eye. A hidden folder, tucked away where it wasn't supposed to be, out of sight from the regular files. My stomach gave a little twist, urging me to peek inside, and when I did, it was like my whole body locked up. There, staring back at me, was a dating app nestled in that secret spot. My mind scrambled to make sense of it. Why on earth would my wife have a dating app stashed away like that? Against my better judgment, I tapped it open, and as I scrolled through, the truth hit me like a freight train. She was up to something, no doubt about it. The messages in there laid it all bare. She'd been chatting with other guys, and not just lately, but even way back when we were still dating. Some of the exchanges were light and teasing, others were straight-up flirty, and a few were so bold I could barely keep my lunch down reading them. My grip on the phone tightened as I kept going, line after line, different guys, different threads, but the same vibe every time. She'd giggle at their quips, play along with their moves, and reply in ways that made it crystal clear she wasn't just being polite. She'd been pulling this off right under my nose the whole time we were together. Without a second thought, I started snapping screenshots, names, dates, the worst bits of those chats. I grabbed it all, making sure I had solid proof in case she tried to talk her way out of it later. Those messages would do the talking for her. Once I locked down everything I needed, I slid the phone back across the counter to the shop guy and kept my voice level as I said, "Go ahead and finish the transfer." The technician nodded and kept working on moving her files over, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I just stood there, totally spaced out, my mind spinning as I wondered if this was who she'd always been deep down. No matter how I twisted it around in my head, one thing stood out like a neon sign. I couldn't sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. I had to face her, had to get some answers. There was no dodging this mess. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I'd already mapped out how I'd tackle it, a plan forming step by step. So when I stepped inside, I fished the shiny new phone out of my pocket, handed it to her with a faint grin, and kept my eyes locked on her face, studying every flicker. Her whole expression lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. She threw her arms around me, planting a quick peck on my cheek, gushing, "Oh my gosh, babe, you got me a new phone? You didn't have to do that." She was genuinely thrilled. No clue about the storm brewing just beneath the surface. I let her soak in that happy bubble for a heartbeat or two before I cleared my throat and dropped the bomb. "Yeah, I figured a new one made more sense than patching up the old junker. Oh, and by the way, I checked out your phone before they transferred everything," I said, keeping my tone even but sharp, cutting straight to it. "I saw the dating app." Her smile vanished faster than a popped balloon, and she squinted at me, muttering, "Wait, what did you just say?" I didn't flinch, holding her stare steady. "I saw it, Katrina, the app, the messages, you chatting up other guys." For a split second, she just gawked at me, and I could practically see the gears grinding as she scrambled for a comeback. Then she let out a huff, snapping, "You seriously went digging through my phone, Edgar? That's such a violation. Don't you trust me at all?" I saw that move coming a mile away, flipping it back on me, dodging the real issue like a pro. But I wasn't about to let her sidetrack me, so I kept my voice firm and said, "That's not what this is about. And you know it. I need to hear why you've got a dating profile and why you're messaging other men." Her face shifted again, a flicker of panic creeping in as she realized I wasn't budging. "Okay, look," she mumbled, her tone softening. "It wasn't a big deal. I was just bored or whatever, messing around. I never actually meant to meet up with anyone." I stared her down, my voice low but solid as I asked, "Do you even get how messed up this is? Giving your attention to someone outside our marriage, that's how everything crumbles, and I'm not about to let that happen to us." She glanced at me, then quickly looked away, like she couldn't bear the weight of her own actions pressing down on her. I took a deep breath, laying it out plain and simple. "You've got to stop this. Delete that app, cut off every single guy you've been talking to, and I need to know this won't ever happen again." She gave a slow nod, whispering, "Okay, I'll get rid of it," and right there in front of me, she pulled out her phone and uninstalled the app while I watched closely. But even as she did it, something gnawed at me, a quiet little voice saying this wasn't the end of the story. For the next 8 months, life rolled on like nothing had ever gone sideways. Katrina swore she'd ditched the app and cut ties with those guys, and I really tried to buy into that promise. Every time those messages flashed back into my mind, those flirty little chats she'd had with strangers, I'd tell myself to shake it off, to let it go already. I kept repeating that relationships need trust to survive, and if I kept second-guessing her, I'd just end up driving her further away. There'd be times when her phone buzzed, and my gut would clench tight, but I'd bite my tongue and not ask who it was. I didn't want to turn into that clingy, suspicious husband who's always hovering. I was working so hard to convince myself everything was back on track, oblivious to the fact that Katrina was still playing me, keeping up her double life right in front of me. Then one morning, I woke up feeling like my body was staging a revolt. There was this sharp, stinging burn every time I hit the bathroom. I froze right where I stood, my brain scrambling to make sense of it. How could something so off the wall be happening to me? As the day dragged on, that discomfort didn't just linger, it cranked up to full-on misery, making every trip to the restroom feel like a punishment I didn't sign up for. By nightfall, I spotted something even worse, a thick, yellowish gunk that made my stomach drop, and that's when it all snapped into focus. My body was screaming that something was seriously off. The next morning, I didn't mess around. I headed straight to the hospital, clinging to a shred of hope that maybe this was just some random infection, something innocent. After a full checkup and some tests, the doctor pulled me aside, met my gaze, and broke the news. I'd picked up something serious. I stared at him, waiting for some twist, some just kidding, but all he added was, "These kinds of infections only spread through intimate contact." That hit me like a brick wall. There was no other way around it. Katrina had been with someone else. I stumbled out of the hospital in a fog, my head buzzing with shock and betrayal. That night, I lay in bed next to her, eyes glued to the ceiling while my thoughts raced a million miles an hour, piecing together the ugly truth. When morning rolled around, I was up before she stirred, already bracing myself for the showdown I knew was coming. I shuffled into the kitchen, poured myself a steaming mug of coffee, and let the bitter warmth steady my nerves as I geared up for what was next. A couple minutes later, Katrina strolled into the kitchen, leaned in to kiss my cheek, and it took every ounce of willpower I had not to shove her away in revulsion. I let her go through the motions, grabbing a mug, pouring her coffee, settling into a chair, and taking that first sip, before I locked eyes with her and cut straight to it. "Kitty, have you been with someone else?" Her face changed in a flash, twisting into this offended scowl like I'd just thrown the wildest accusation imaginable. She slammed her cup down and huffed. "Excuse me? What kind of question is that supposed to be?" "It's a straightforward one," I pushed back, not letting her wiggle out of it. "Have you been with another guy?" I could see the fury bubbling up in her glare as she snapped. "I can't believe you're seriously asking me this. After all we've been through, you're accusing me of cheating?" I didn't even blink, keeping my voice steady as I asked, "Did you really stop talking to those guys from the dating app like you said you would?" That's when she lost it, practically shouting, "Oh my gosh, you're dragging that up again? I told you I got rid of it all. Do you know how draining it is to be with someone who can't trust you?" This is absurd, Edgar, totally absurd. But I wasn't about to let her steamroll me, so I said, "Fine, then let me see your phone." She flinched, pulling it closer to her chest like a shield, and shot back. "No way, that's my privacy you're messing with." I gave a slow nod, keeping my cool, and said, "Okay, how about this? We go to the hospital together and get tested, both of us." She leaned back, crossing her arms tight, and sneered, "I don't have to prove a thing to you." That right there was all the confirmation I needed. I let out a long breath through my nose, slumping my shoulders like I was dropping it, playing defeated. But the second she glanced away, I lunged across the table, snagged her phone from her grip, and pressed it to her face to unlock it before she could yank it back. She let out a yelp, leaping up and clawing at me, but it was too late. The screen glowed to life, and I started swiping through it. There it was, everything I dreaded. Messages, pictures, proof of chats with multiple guys, some from just days ago, others going back months, flirty texts, meet-up plans, and miss you notes. She hadn't stopped, not even after I'd pleaded with her to cut it out. She'd been feeding me lies this whole time. I turned to her, my voice weirdly calm as I asked, "How could you betray me like this?" She didn't even try to apologize or spin another story. Instead, she just smirked and flipped me off right to my face. Something inside me broke, and I said, "Get your stuff packed. This marriage is done. I want you out before I'm back." She grinned like she thought I was joking, but I didn't stick around to debate it. I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and left her sitting there stunned. I drove a few blocks, pulled over to the side of the road, grabbed my phone, and dialed my lawyer, saying, "Find me the top divorce attorney around. I need this handled fast." By the time I rolled up to my parents' place, I knew I wasn't stepping foot back home that day. They let me in, puzzled about why I was there so early, but I just said I needed a breather, no full explanation yet, because I couldn't even get the words out. 3 days later, I finally went back to the house, and it was empty. She'd cleared out, no trace left behind. I didn't have to dig to figure out where she went. Word got back to me quick that she'd shacked up with one of those guys she'd been seeing behind my back, probably for longer than I'd ever suspected. That truth stung in a way I can't even put into words. It was like a fire eating me up from the inside. I won't sugarcoat it. Going through a divorce was pure torment. People toss it around like it's just forms and signatures, a neat little process where you dot some I's and move on. But that's nowhere near the reality. It's so much messier than that. It's about ripping yourself free from the life you poured your heart into, waking up to the gut punch that the person you loved, the one you bent over backwards for, the one you pictured growing old with, was never truly in it with you. That kind of ache is something I wouldn't wish on anyone, and it cut even deeper because I really loved her, gave her my all, and got nothing but deception in return. But here's the thing, I learned from it, even if it was the roughest lesson of my life, and I want other guys out there to get this without having to crash and burn first. Here's what I figured out. Don't ever love with your eyes closed. Sure, love's supposed to rest on trust, but that trust has to be earned, not handed out like free candy. I put my faith in Katrina because I wanted to believe she was worth it, not because she'd proven she was, and that was my first misstep. Second, if someone crosses you once, bet on them doing it again, I caught her chatting with those guys, and instead of walking away, I let her sweet-talk me into thinking it was no big deal. That's when I should have bolted. Third, pay attention to what people do, not what they say. They'll feed you pretty lines to keep you happy, but their actions spill the real story. Katrina swore she'd deleted the app, promised she'd cut ties, but all the while, she was still stepping out on me. And finally, when someone shows you their true colors, don't wait for a dozen more red flags to believe it. One's enough to know what's up. I'm not telling this story to get a bunch of poor Edgar pats on the back. I'm sharing it because some guy out there needs to hear it loud and clear. If you're brushing off the warning signs, telling yourself your instincts are off, or making excuses for a woman who keeps stepping over the line, stop shielding your heart and start guarding your future. And if you know someone who's stuck in that same trap, pass this video along. It might just spare them the heartache I had to slog through.